Welcome to CBS Cosmic Brothers and Sisters, where we introduce you to your brothers and sisters from around the universe, and no AI is necessary. Just your favorite tinfoil hat. Go get yours on. I have mine on because today Randy Cramer is telling Emery Smith all about the insectoids of Mars, insectoids of space. Get your favorite tinfoil hat on. I've got mine on. Let's go!
Tell me about the insectoids. Now, I know there's many species, but which ones have you been exposed to?
Primarily the indigenous insectoids on Mars, which I realize some people refer to them as a mantid species, which I don't necessarily want to disagree with because, potato. So I don't think that that's wrong. But to me, they really look more or less like a giant ant. So you can call them a mantid species. I have no problem with that. But I think sometimes the confusion is that a mantid species is like a praying mantis. And that's not my experience of them at all, that they're basically like a giant ant. I maybe say I've heard these terminology thrown around interchangeably, and I'm not so sure that they're interchangeable, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Are they in other places besides Mars?
I think there are a number of insectoid species. We certainly have an indigenous insectoid species here on planet Earth that's subterranean, indigenous insectoid species on Mars. And there are other insectoid species that I'm aware of that are different than that as well. So,
could you give me some examples to the audience of some different types of insectoids besides like the ants and the mantis people?
Sure. There was another species that we encountered who their physiological stance and their physiological posture was very, very different. So these insectoids that we dealt with on Mars, you basically just think of an ant that's standing up. So it's basically on two legs. The middle appendages can be used to steady themselves or as other feet if they need to, or they can be used as an extra set of hands. So they're kind of an appendage that can be sort of an either or, but they tend to upright walk. There is another insectoid species that we encountered that was much taller, first of all. The indigenous insectoids from Mars were 5.5 feet tall. About the drones are about 5.5 feet tall. The leader of the hive was not a queen, it's not a female, it's a male, so it's referred to as a king, and they're much larger, 8 times the size probably. But we've experienced another insectoid species who basically was on 4 appendages with a torso that kind of came up from, a body that was parallel to the ground with 2 very large appendages, which sort of appeared like grippers like that, but then these appendages could unfold, and there was like 7 or 8 little phalanges that they could manipulate objects with or kind of bring them together like 3 appendages. It was very peculiar, but they're much larger. They probably stand, easily 8 to 10 feet tall from the ground.
I would like to talk about the dexterity, especially of the insectoids. You probably have experience with this.
They are incredibly agile with their phalanges. Their ability to pick up, manipulate objects, maneuver, make things, operate things is incredible. I mean, if you think about our ability to work on a typewriter with 10 fingers, what would you do if you only had 6 fingers? Well, you'd have a limited sort of array of what you could do on the keyboard. Well, what if you had 8 fingers per hand? Well, then you could type way faster and way quicker than you could with 10 fingers. So yeah, they're incredibly dexterous and have an incredible ability to manipulate physical objects with those phalanges.
Tell me about the speed of these insectoids. We know they have great dexterity, but they also are very strong.
Incredibly strong and really fast. Like the first time that I had seen one of these larger insectoids, kind of, I want to say scurry, but kind of run at speed, it was incredible. I mean, they were easily achieving speeds of 25 to 30 miles an hour just on foot. It was incredibly fast.
Do they use any other devices to get around?
Not that I had encountered, but we didn't encounter these species in combat. So I imagine their combat dress was a bit different.
How did you communicate with these insectoids and other species?
Well, the insectoids, interestingly enough, the first time that we encountered them, I basically just spoke to it in English, hoping that somehow it would understand, and I kind of made some hand gestures, but it surprised me when it spoke back, telepathically, mind to mind. I wasn't aware that they had that ability until, we walked up to them and tried to have a conversation with them.
What was the conversation about?
It was basically, hi, how are you? I introduced myself and just wanted to see if we could establish a line of conversation. We were on a patrol, a squad on patrol, and we came close to the hive, and they were outside the front of their hive, doing something out in front there with bringing some boxes out and sort of laying them out and objects out turns out, from what I understand later on, they were using natural UV to sterilize equipment out in the sun. So, but there were, a bunch of them, and we came fairly close, but at a safe distance, and there was no hostile reaction. And I gathered, because there was a small group of us, that they didn't perceive us as a threat. And I sat there and thought about it, and I was like, what would happen if just one of us walked up and introduced ourselves? What would happen? And I remember proposing to the squad. I was like, what if I just go down there and say hi? And my first wife, who I also served with, we were in the same squad in the MDF. She said, oh yeah, I want to see that. I want to see you come running back with one arm and your other arm screaming. She was a sweetheart like that. And so she basically was like, I double dog dare you. And so I went down and said hello, and it went well enough. And I essentially asked the insectoid that I was speaking to if I could bring friends back. That would be okay. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. And so we went back, and I reported to my CO that we had made contact. And he was like, what? You did what? I was like, well, I just walked up and thought I'd say hi. And he was like, you did what? But it's like, well, it went well. And I asked them if we could come back, and they said, yeah. I said, so maybe you should talk to the ambassadorial court and see if they want to go have a chat with the insectoids. And a week later, we were going back for a visit and made friends at that point. So,
wow. How many different insectoids are there? Oh my God. We have our ant people. Apparently the Hopi were helped by the ant people inside Earth. But how many insectoids in space, my Lord? Leave a comment and subscribe to Cosmic Brothers and Sisters, where you are introduced to your family from across the universe and beyond, and no AI is ever necessary.